Dr. Taitz had petitioned the Ninth Circuit asking that she be given the majority of the time and that she go first. The Ninth Circuit issued a ruling saying no. We will extend the time from 15 minutes to 20 minutes total between you, but Mr. Kreep gets 10, you get 10, and Mr. Kreep goes first on opening and rebuttal. Dr. Taitz did not save any time for rebuttal, even though they gave her time.
Do you think you both got a fair hearing today?
I think we got a fair hearing on the issue, given the realities of politics and the realities of the courts. Understand, this is the only Circuit Court of Appeal, the only federal appellate court that has ever allowed oral argument on this case. So that's historic in and of itself.
So we just witnessed an historical event here.
Yes. What they do with it, what the Ninth Circuit does with it, it's another issue, but this is the first time anyone's been allowed to argue this before a federal appellate court.
Do you think it's significant that this time, unlike in 2009 when I was the only one there with the camera getting the conference, this time was different because now C-SPAN put in a media request?
Well, we had C-SPAN covering it live. We had ABC here. I didn't see CBS, but they had requested also. You know, I think Mr. Obama, in filing or submitting for publication this document, whatever it is, on last Wednesday, actually brought more attention to the issue than any one of us that are on the other side of this issue could have. He made it the news.
I agree. Do you think this sudden declaration last night, almost at the midnight hour on the East Coast, that they had killed Osama bin Laden, but he's not presenting any bodies, not presenting any proof, do you think that was a staged act to take attention away from you and Orly Taitz here in this hearing?
I'm not gonna say something like that. I have no evidence to that. I have nothing on which to base it, so I'm not going to say anything like.
Good timing, though.
Well, my understanding is that he did it right during the middle of Donald Trump's TV show, so maybe that has more to do with it than us.
If they deny are you going to appeal any farther? If they say no here?
Well, that's up to my client, Pastor Wiley Drake is here, and my other client, Markham Robinson, but I would anticipate that we will file a petition for writ of certiorari with the U.S. Supreme Court if they deny our appeal.
Do you think there's any significance to the fact the three-judge panel did not interrupt Orly Taitz during her first presentation as they did you, and they kept hammering you for standing, show me where you got standing? They didn't bring that issue up there. Do you think there's any significance? They let her speak without interruption the whole time.
Well, they hit me with questions. They hit Mr. DeJute with questions for me to, just be sure speculation on my part. I have no idea why they did or did not question anybody.
Okay, thank you very much for your interview. We have Dr. Orly and attorney Orly Taitz with us. Orly Taitz, what did you have that you didn't get to show the court? It's unfortunate you prepared all this. Yeah. So you've got all these documents here, and you didn't even get to submit them. You didn't get to submit these to the court or even show them, did you?
No, because the time was very limited and a mistake was made. We were supposed to get 20 minutes total, and they started running, and Mr. Kreep went 18 minutes, and there was very little time. At any rate, this is Mr. Obama's long-form birth certificate, what he claims to be long-form birth certificate, which clearly is not. And just to show the difference, I have here a long-form birth certificate for another individual. And you can see that in 1961, they did not use this type of green safety paper. It was on white paper. You can see how it's turning yellow with time. So clearly it's not a correct copy, true and correct copy of the original birth certificate. You can see here on the original one you would have a seal, embossed seal. This one does not have it. You can see the wording. It says this certified that the above is a true and correct copy of the original record on file in the research, planning, and so forth. Here it says they added something to sort of cover themselves, and probably to cover this Mr. Onaka, because it says, I certify this is a true copy or abstract. When somebody says this is an abstract, it means they just put together something approximately. And the point is, we're not looking here for Jackson Pollock to give us some abstract art. We are looking for a true and correct copy of the birth certificate. And here's another issue. If one were to have a valid birth certificate, he would have no problem getting a valid social security number from the state where he resides. And what we found out through selective service records, that Mr. Obama was using this Connecticut Social Security number 042684425. That's from the state of Connecticut, where he never resided. We went to Social Security verification system, and we entered the same number and name, and it says failed, never issued. So we have clear evidence of fraud, Social Security fraud, and elections fraud, because Mr. Obama is residing in the White House using the Social Security number that was never assigned to him. Now we have more evidence of fraud. This document was created using a manual typewriter. With manual typewriter, you would see that everything is justified to the right. You can see that all the lines are starting on the right. When you look at the birth certificate, and this is enlargement by Mr. Obama, you can see that it is centered as something that is created on the computer. We took census from 1960, and you can see that census uses different terminology, and when the race is concerned, and I'm not saying that it's correct wording, they did use words as Caucasian, Asian, and Negro. They did not use the word African. This is a modern term that would not have been in the original birth certificate.
So that's further proof that fraud has been committed in doing these documents, which mean somebody working for Obama has committed fraud.
Absolutely.
Fraud on the United States, fraud on the court, and fraud on the records.
Not only fraud, but this is uttering of documents that are not valid documents. Now, when you look at the numbers, do you see this woman? She got her birth certificate on August the 11th, and her number is 10637. Mr. Obama got his on August the 8th, and the number is 10641. It should have been a lower number, and it is higher number.
That seems significant.
Yes.
Cinderella.
Okay. Now, what he is stating, that when you open this document in Adobe Illustrator, it opens in multiple layers, and you can see that the document was manipulated, and there are multiple layers.
Form-birth-certificate. On this page, you can see the birth certificate, and the interesting thing about this is they left it in PDF format. Let's click the link. Still on whitehouse.gov, might I add. This is the birth certificate in PDF form. Now, the interesting thing about, I'm just going to go ahead and download this to my computer real quick. Save PDF to download folder. There it is. The interesting thing about PDF files, if you didn't know, is that PDFs are ran through Adobe Acrobat Reader, which is, of course, by Adobe. Let me open this up so you can see. Here is the birth certificate. Now, if you didn't know this, Adobe makes a series of software, including Adobe Illustrator. Illustrator and After Effects are linked through Adobe's Adobe Bridge, is what they call it. Basically, Adobe Illustrator lets you kind of create and edit photos, similar to how Photoshop would. Now, if you save an image that you've created or edited or modified or enhanced in Adobe Illustrator as just an image file, it'll delete all traces of what you've edited in Illustrator. It'll only show the final result, kind of like how this looks. I can't see where people have edited, I just see an image. However, if you export it to Adobe Acrobat Reader, which is a PDF file format, the data from where you've edited, and then in turn, through Adobe Bridge, you can open this PDF file in Illustrator. I happen to have Illustrator, so I'm going to right-click on this file I just downloaded. First, let me get info just for evidential reasons. You can see on this file right here, where from, and it has the URL whitehouse.gov, and last opened today, 6:51. Created today, 6:51. Standard time right now, it's 6:53 currently. Now if I right-click and hit open with Adobe Illustrator, this is the software that they use to create this fake birth certificate. Allow it to initialize and warm up. Here it is, Adobe Illustrator. This is the birth certificate, and here is the layers palette. Now, if you didn't know, in Illustrator, if you want to add something, if you want to edit, maybe draw on top of something, what you do is click this button to create a new layer, and then you can draw on top of things. and you can see I just drew lines, and it's on a new layer, and you wouldn't be able to tell if I just say this as an image of whether it was part of the original or not, but here you can see it's on a new layer. If you open it in Illustrator, and you can turn on and off this layer, you can toggle the visibility and see that it was drawn, that it was added in later on. Let me delete this layer and go back to layer 1. This is the original from whitehouse.gov. If you open this up, arrow means expand. It'll expand the layer to a group. You expand that again. Here's all the layers. Now, this birth certificate was scanned onto a computer. If you know anything about scanners and scanning into Adobe Illustrator, it keeps it on one layer. It doesn't, there's no such thing as technology for a scanner that'll separate parts of the images to different layers. So if they scanned this, which they say they did, it would all be on one layer. Here there are multiple layers, as you can see, and even inside these there's more. I'm just going to show you, this is the original one right here. The bottom layer is the first layer they started out with, and I'll toggle the visibility of that so you can see the stuff that was original. Everything else has been added on, and all the layers are above. I'll show you. This layer, for instance, contains a whole bunch of fake stuff. You can really see it. One interesting thing, let me zoom in so you can see. I'll enhance this. If you draw something, such as a signature, in ink, you can see all these pixels. You can see where it's, because ink on paper, it's not one solid color. It creates.
Let's look at this layer. You can see Stanley and D. And what we can see, this was written by pen, and the rest was edited by computer. We also see, when we look at the records of Mr. Obama, something very strange. This is Mr. Obama's application to extend time of temporary stay. It was issued. He signed it in 1962, and he was asked whether he has children. He listed only Roy Obama, his son from Africa. He didn't even list Barack Obama as his son. How could it happen? Barack Obama was born a year earlier in August of 1961. His father fills out a document a year later in August 1962, and he does not even mention him as his son. That's very strange. And then, of course, when you look at the address, we have a number of documents from the Immigration Service of Mr. Obama, and it shows wrong address here. This is the address that was a la Castre. It's not the address that he put on his birth certificate. And also the doctor, Snopes.com, did research. They said that supposedly his doctor was Dr. Rodney West, and here in the document that he released was the name of Dr. David A. Sinclair. So there is a lot of evidence of fraud, and therefore this needs to continue. This is Watergate 2.
Watergate 2, that's a pretty significant title there, Attorney Taitz. You did a fairly good representation there for your side. Do you think if they send this back, if they remand this to the courts, will this get your, what was your client's name who's in jail now for refusing?
Well, he's not my client, Lieutenant Colonel Lakin. Well, he actually...
He didn't get a fair trial, did he?
No, absolutely not. He's supposed to be released May 18th, but this man lost his pension. He served 17 years in U.S. military, and he lost his pension, and he is sitting in Fort Leavenworth. So you can't, take back 6 months that he lost from his life, but at the very minimum, they could reimburse him, and they can return his pension.
What is your going to be next step if the three-judge panel say no, denied, case over? What is your next step?
Well, I have a case coming shortly in New Orleans, in U.S. District Court in New Orleans, and it's coming on the 11th. But who knows? Maybe on the 10th, Barack Obama is going to announce that they found J.B. Cooper. And they threw his body overboard from the plane. You never know.
So you can't take evidence. Do you think there's any significance in the fact that just last night Obama went on national television and said, we just killed Osama bin Laden, where they hadn't been able to find him for 10 years, and right before this case comes to the appellate court? Do you think there's any significance in that?
That's why I was saying, before the next hearing, they're going to find J.B. Cooper.
Okay.
They're going to throw him overboard.
Thank you very much for this interview, Dr. and Attorney Orly Taitz. Well, this is William Wagner live here. It would appear to me that if the three judges sitting here today do not take this seriously, do not recognize that real issues of eligibility and fraud have been committed on the court, on the United States of America, they may be setting this country up for a revolution. That's my opinion. See ya.